This is the meeting of the Executive Cabinet Member Climate Change and Environment, taking place on Monday, the 9th of October 2023. I'm Councillor Richard Sylvester, the Executive Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Environment. So could I welcome councillors, officers and members of the public if you're watching this recording on the Bolton Council YouTube channel. So item 1 on the agenda is monitoring of executive member decisions, and we were sent the monitoring report prior to this meeting. Are there any questions or comments on the monitoring report?
I think, Chair, just to say that the procurement of meat for school meals could come up because the contract commenced on the 1st of October, and we can take off the finance report Q1 because that's been completed.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'll note that report as there's no questions. Item 2 is the recovery of abandoned shopping trolleys. Shopping trolleys, a new policy. We'll go over to Gary Parker for this.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors and colleagues. This is the ECM report entitled Recovery of Abandoned Shopping Trolleys. So Section 99, Schedule 4 of the Environmental Protection Act 1990, as amended by the Clean Neighbourhoods and Environment Act of 2005, allows local authorities to recharge the costs incurred as a result of dealing with abandoned shopping trolleys. Now, there's a few ways that this can be done. One is via a voluntary protocol, which is set out in the report. All the majors have a process for this. A quick Google search will show that you can email Morrison's or Aldi or other supermarkets are available, and some have specific companies for this. You notify them and the trolley is then removed. A good example of that is Wanzl, W-A-N-Z-L, if you want to Google that. Another option for recovering abandoned trolleys, if that protocol isn't in place with certain suppliers, is via council recovery. So if we notify a protocol member and that trolley isn't recovered by 5 p.m. the following day, we can take the trolley ourselves or seize that. Once we've seized that, there's certain things we can do. So we can store, we can return, and we can charge for those things that we do. Summary of charges in section 2.7 points out that collection by the council is £50 per trolley. Storage is £5 per day for a maximum of 42 days. Returning to the owner is £100 per trolley, and the trolley disposal is a total of £300 per trolley. To get this to the place we need it to be at, with your approval, there is a consultation and engagement process we need to follow as set out in legislation. Part of that is adopting the formal powers, consulting with affected stakeholders, so local retailers, representative bodies such as the British Retail Consortium, local residents, GMP and the Environment Agency. What we're looking for today, Chair, is approval for the introduction of an abandoned shopping trolley enforcement protocol. That concludes the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. So questions, and Councillor Hayes has indicated.
Yes, thank you. I mean, it's a very valuable thing to be doing, I would imagine, and most trolleys do have the supermarket's name on the handle, in my experience. Can I also ask a question of something that really happened 2 or 3 years ago? My garden, the boundary is a stream, Dean Brook, and a trolley was thrown over the bridge of Smithilsdean Road into the brook. And though it's about 3 or 4 years ago, I had to go through a load of undergrowth down to the stream in my wellies, tug the trolley out. Now, quite difficult to recover. Would the council recover, or the supermarket recover in those circumstances?
Would you like me to take that, Councillor?
Please.
Yeah.
Please,
so ideally, Councillor Hayes, what would happen is we would notify the owner of the trolley, and the company they have set up to recover this would do that. That's their full-time job. With a council perspective, we'd need to look at it, assess the risk attached to collecting it, where it is and how we're going to recover it. And if it was able to do so, then we would.
Yeah, in that case, of course, it was too far down to read the supermarket name. It turned out to be Asda, but and I actually took it to them. But yeah, let's hope that would work.
Yes, thank you.
any further questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Muslin.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I was just wondering, are we aware of any other councils that do this, either nearby or in other parts of the country, and just actually, do they have much success with it, or do they make much money out of it? Because I mean, surely it's just a money-making exercise. So do they actually, does it yield positive results in terms of net income, or is it actually just we're doing it, but it's not going to perhaps do that much in the long run?
Thank you, Councillor Muslin. Wigan have a similar policy. They spring to mind. It's not a massive financial return on doing this, but it is a decent disincentive, and it allows us to work with the retailers to resolve the issue of the abandoned trolleys across the borough. So it's not a massive money generator, but it certainly contributes to the look and feel of the borough.
Yeah, it's not a money-making exercise, this. It does cost the council, so we can recover our costs. So it will save the council money. This is the angle where I'm coming from on this. So
Okay,
if there's
that's fine. Thank you.
Sure. So if there's no more questions or comments, I'm very happy to approve the implementation of the abandoned shopping trolley enforcement protocol and the consultation which has to take place legally. So there will be a consultation process with this.
Absolutely, Councillor.
Sure, thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 3, and this is highway weed spraying. So Laurie, are you taking us through this report?
If I may, yes. I'm
Yes.
joined by my colleague Neil Martin. Neil, did you want to introduce yourself to the group? Oh, you have to take yourself off mute first.
Hi, my name's Neil Martin. I'm a team leader for Neighbourhood Services.
Okay, thanks, Neil. I brought Neil around today because Neil's been managing the weed spraying contract. So just in case there's some detailed questions, Neil will be able to help us with that. So essentially what we do at the moment is we deliver a weed spraying via a contractor, very similar to what a lot of local authorities do at the moment. So it's a specialist company. They've got a number of all-terrain vehicles, ATVs or quad bikes, that go around the borough. You'll have noticed them on occasion. What they're doing is twice a year, in the early spring and early summer, they're spraying our highway to protect the highway so that we can manage weeds along those areas. What we have noticed over some occasions is the quality of that weed spraying perhaps could be better managed, and we think we might be able to do that better ourselves. The cost has increased quite a bit. So around 18 months ago, we were paying about £75,000. From 1st of April 2024, we're expecting to pay £120,000. Now, I know some of the products has increased, some of the consumables have, but we wonder whether we might be able to manage those costs a little bit better by delivering that service in-house. We would also wondered whether if we delivered the service in-house, we could improve the response time and be able to kind of bring a slightly more expertise service to Bolton. We're also wondering whether the flexibility might be able to be delivered using those resources. So essentially, we can't weed spray when it's wet. It just makes the product completely ineffective. So we want to be able to use those resources to do other things around the borough, such as potentially cutting back some of our hedges in the right season, or other pieces of work, whereby we can then reserve that dry weather in the right season to weed spray where possible. So quite a bit of flexibility that this enables us to manage. We've kind of looked into all the training needs, all the requirements, the management requirements that we would need, the IT technology that we would need internally. So quite a few things to think through. We think, having done the right calculations as per section 4.1.3 the report, we think we could deliver it within the budget that we've got put aside for weed spraying by delivering it ourselves and having that little bit more control within the council. So it's really just requesting permission to purchase all-terrain vehicles and to deliver that service in-house from 1st of April 2024.
Okay, thank you, Laurie. So we'll go over to Councillor Hayes and then Councillor Muslin. So Councillor Hayes first. Just on mute, Councillor Hayes.
Some people wish I could always speak, but thank you very much for that. In principle, I'm very much in favour of this, but one or two questions, obviously. I see the benefits. Presumably, the vehicles would have a certain life, so we'd be tied in to delivering the service in-house for perhaps 3 years, if it's a 3-year life for the vehicle. Obviously, staff would be, if we decide to go back again, there'd be redeployment for staff anyway, so that isn't a concern. I think we ought to, if it's a 3-year commitment for vehicles, I think we ought to be asking for a financial summary at the end of the first year so that we know where we are. I'm questioning whether TUPE would possibly apply. I would doubt it from my rather ancient knowledge of employment law, but we're taking over a service from another firm. I'm assuming TUPE wouldn't apply. We wouldn't have to take their employees over. And would we be intending to cover all highways in Bolton? That's the questions I got. But as I say, basically, I'm very much in favour of this.
Okay, Laurie.
Yeah. So with regards to the life cycle of the vehicles, Neil, I don't know if when you went to see them a couple of weeks ago, whether they've indicated that to you. We think 4 to 5 years, but I don't know whether Neil would like to confirm that. Is that correct?
It was interesting when I was there the other day because the vehicles they had were on 18 plates, so you're getting on towards 5 years. So they are quite a vehicle which will last a long time.
Okay, so that answers that question. So a little bit better value with regards to longevity than the street sweepers, which do kind of work quite a bit of machinery within them. So we're expecting them to last a little bit longer, but we're kind of being conservative and saying 4 to 5 years because we've not operated ATVs at the moment. So we're better off being conservative, and then we can assess the longevity of those vehicles after year 1 or 2. With regards to TUPE, we did consider whether or not TUPE would be an issue. What we did find is that the individuals that we use for our contract aren't only working on the council's contract. They're working on a number of different contracts across the provider. So it's not 1 or 2 individuals that would TUPE across. So they need to work a certain proportion of their day for the council for a long period of time to qualify for TUPE. So that doesn't apply in this case. So for example, on occasion, we might only have 1 or 2 individuals where they're trying to catch up on work, as they did this year, because we had quite a long wet period. They had kind of up to 6, 7, 8 different vehicles across Bolton certain times of the year. So I would say that TUPE wouldn't apply in this case. But yes, with regards to staffing, as you noticed in the report, which I didn't highlight in my summary, we would be looking at 2 to 2.5 staff members working on weed spraying. However, we would extend that training to a few of our neighbourhood care officers on that same grade and that same job description, so that we can manage staff cover and that flexibility that I discussed earlier.
And all highways covered?
And all highways are covered. Yes, yeah. The requirement for our highway service is to ensure that we're spraying all highways. I don't know if there's any more detail that you want to add to that, Neil, or whether that's I mean, obviously it's public highway rather than any unadopted roads. Is that correct, Neil?
Adopted footpaths and roads across the border.
Fine.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hayes. Over to Councillor Muslin.
Thank you, Chair. Laurie, you are right. It is always better to be conservative, I have to say. But my question, I did have a serious question, was just in regards to the cost of our proposed cost savings, I guess, because it mentions in the introduction and background at 1.4 that we're paying about £120,000 at the moment. I think the proposed savings of the proposed cost of 4.1.3 is 118,554. So really only a saving of £1,500 initially. But one of the things it refers to in 1.4, going back there, is that it's the estimated cost will increase by 20%, and the cost of consumable materials will have contributed to this increase. But then as we go further into the report, it actually says, which I've absolutely just lost now, under 2.1.2, that it is accepted that the increased cost of consumables cannot be avoided. So what we're saying is, really, the cost is going to increase regardless of whether we do this either in-house or privately through the contractors as we've been doing before. So I'm just struggling to see why you're saying there's going to be a huge benefiting cost to us, because surely by bringing these people onto our books as well and hiring more staff, that's going to be public sector pay increases have been particularly fair in the past couple of years and have gone up, and then we're talking about pension contributions and things like that. Actually, are we not adding a longer term cost to the council by doing this rather than just using the contractors as we were previously?
Do you want me to answer that one?
Yes, please, Laurie.
Okay, yeah, so I think, yeah, you're right. There's perhaps a little bit of a contradictory terms, and we could have probably explained that a little bit better. But essentially what we're saying is we're trying to manage that increase by bringing it in-house. So there is a marginal cost savings, but it's about ensuring that we're doing what we can to keep within budget. We have highlighted in the budget papers that there has been an increase in some consumables, so that we're keeping a very close eye on. Glyphosate is essentially the product that's increasing the most for this sort of item, but it's very hard to see that from your contractor. So they do send us itemized bills, but essentially it's not just the cost savings which defines why we're bringing it in-house. There's a quality control, there's ensuring that we can manage all different elements. So yes, bringing staff in-house might enable us to manage that, but at least we then have control and we have full transparency over what those staffing costs are. Whereas with a contractor, it becomes a little bit difficult and there's less control, I would say, over those staffing costs.
Yes, absolutely. I agree completely. And it's not just quality control. It's listed here, the advantages. There's the response times, training and expertise, flexibility, data protection, equipment maintenance. These are advantages which are listed in the report. And we do know then, if it's brought in-house, what is actually occurring out there on a street level. I've had casework recently from residents in Queen's Park and Central Ward, where back streets at this moment in time are full of weeds, and they should have had a first spraying earlier this year. And the service does not know if those streets were actually sprayed and received that first spraying. So if it's brought in-house, we will definitely know if those streets have had the first and second sprayings. Gary, did you want to come in? You indicated previously.
Thank you, Chair. I did have my hand up and I was going to talk about the additional benefits around flexibility, response times and quality, but you've covered those already. We do know that if it rains, the contractors can't spray the weeds. It's just a fact. But having that resource in-house means we can redirect that resource in those wet points of the week and have them doing other things. But we can't discount the additional benefits to bringing this in-house as opposed to paying an external contractor with an element of profit, but we can have it in-house and higher quality service.
Sure. Director, did you want to come in as well?
Thank you, Chair. It was a similar point. I think it's been well covered really by Gary, but just to offer reassurance that clearly financial efficiency would be advantageous if we were able to drive that at a point in time, particularly noting the price inflation. But I think principally this is about quality assurance, and I think one of the key benefits for me will be the opportunity, as colleagues have alluded to reconcile data from the all-terrain vehicles in the form of tracker data with the actual schedule. And I think that really is key, so that we have a window by which we will deliver weed control operations throughout the borough. But at any point in time, we can continue to track progress so that we have a strong evidence base, which I think probably colleagues would agree has been perhaps at times missing or light in terms of the existing arrangements. So I think, as I say, quality assurance is very much the priority here, Chair. But as I say, we can drive some financial efficiency through that process as well. Then certainly we would look to capture that. But as I say, colleagues, I think have covered that point. So thank you.
Sure, I'll bring Councillor Sanders in now, who's indicated.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to follow on really from fellow members and obviously officers, I'm very supportive of this report. Weed spraying is one of them areas of council where I think people judge the effectiveness of the council with how bad or good the weeds look. So if you're doing a really good job, no one notices the weeds, and no one really then notices that you're doing a good job. If you're doing a bad job, obviously, or obviously if there's days where you're rained off, obviously people perceive that as a service that's not well delivered. I think bringing that in-house will enable them checks and balances more. As you say, we can monitor locations where we've sprayed, where we've not sprayed. The key line within the report that really jumped out to me was that flexibility. Knowing Neil Martin and his team, how flexible and agile the team try to be, I think having them operatives that may be able to jump into Neil's teams on the rainy days can only benefit other areas, like we say, cutting back hedges, going to our parks, and helping with the operations there. So yeah, a good report all round, and I'm really keen to put my support behind it.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Sanders. So I'm looking forward to Neil's team undertaking this service in-house next year from 2024, and therefore I approve the in-house delivery of weed spraying on adopted highway, which is currently delivered by contractors from April 2024. Okay, so I think that concludes today's Executive Cabinet Member meeting. So the next meeting is on Monday, November the 20th. So we'll see each other then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.